Hi, it's Imogen Lamport from Inside Out Style, coming to answer your colour and style questions. I'll take the big one first. Let's see what this is. It's trendy right now, at least in the US, to wear high-waisted pants and jeans and shorter tops. So we're going back to, I think it's a kind of 80s, 90s. It's very 80s, 90s look. I've read conflicting advice as to which body shapes and proportion this flatters, particularly for O and H shapes, whether the high waist helps to hold the tummy in. So who should embrace or skip this trend? This is not the trend for O shapes at all. They are much better in a bit longer tops rather than they're kind of cropped. So, but also we want to bring those body proportions in. Body proportions are just as important as body shapes. So it depends on the length of your leg. So the high waist is very good if you have shorter legs, because what it does is it gives you a bit of leg length back, because you have, you can then have the shorter top, because otherwise, unless you're someone like my daughter who's happy to show her midriff off because she's got a great one, you know, most of us feel like I don't want to have my stomach on show. So a high waist is great. Usually it's often better too for X shapes and A shapes and H shapes, because when you have that curve into a waist, it's actually more comfortable rather than trying to hold something, you know, like so pants or a skirt on lower down, which it tends to slide down, actually means that you often get a better fit if the garment is fitted properly. Now remember that when they're making these things, they're not making them for your particular shape. So they may not have enough, you know, they may not come in enough for you, and you might need to put an alteration in to get the waistband to fit correctly. But if we are thinking about this, it generally is a more flattering trend on those shapes that have a defined waist. Also, if you have shorter legs, it makes your legs look longer. It means you can expose more of the leg. And it kind of balances out the longer body and shorter legs, because you've already got a longer body, usually, when you've got shorter legs. That's how we've got those proportions. So if you are more longer legs and shorter body, then I would say that this is a less great trend. I generally find mid-rise is better than a high-rise for longer legs, shorter body, because what we want to do is we want to actually elongate the top a bit to balance out the legs. Otherwise, we can look really boxy in the top. When we are thinking about this, with body shapes, it is better for a more waisted shape. But we are thinking really body proportions here. So if you do not want to cut your body, what a waistline is a horizontal line. If you do not want to cut your waist off with a horizontal line and draw attention to it, this is not the trend for you. So if you have a tummy, it's not the trend. What it's actually going to do is emphasize your tummy and make it look larger rather than smaller. You are better if you have a tummy to wear your tops a little bit longer. So in fact, the best point to end your tops when you have a bit of a tummy is just past the peak of the tummy. You don't want it all, you know, too far down, but just past the peak of the tummy can be good. But of course, body proportions really come into this. So this is about how long your legs are. So if you have longer legs, then you want actually longer tops to balance out your longer legs, because you have a shorter body. So therefore, the cropped and the short is not as good for you as having something that little bit longer. Often it's just down to the hip bones or slightly lower. It doesn't have to be very long, but it's amazing how much this kind of difference can make in what it looks like proportionally. And proportions are really important. They're that part of the dressing that's part of kind of nature, that everything in nature is created in you know, this Fibonacci sequence that you may know of, that, you know, fern fronds, snail shells, snowflakes, everything like these are everywhere. This little proportion is everywhere. And when we dress in this proportion, which is, you know, kind of a 2 to 3 or a 1 to 2 proportion, it is always more flattering on your body, because we find nature beautiful. Therefore, we find when we reflect this in other elements that we create, it is also more beautiful. So I would say that if you are an H or an O shape, definitely an O shape, avoid this. With an H shape, unless you're a short-legged H shape, I'd also say on the whole, be very wary with this. With the really high waist, go for more a mid-rise rather than a high-rise. I know it's very trendy right now. It suits our X shapes and our A shapes and our H shapes much more than it does suit our H and O shapes. So it is something, look, and the other thing to do is play with it, take photos, see if you like it or not. So always remember that in fashion there are extremes, and you don't have to go to the extremes like the extreme low waist or the extreme high waist. You can go to the middle in between, and it can still be within the kind of overall silhouette of what is currently in fashion without having to go to that extreme. So I would recommend, you know, trying some things on, but you might go, rather than really crop, just dropping it down a couple of inches is going to make a big difference. I always think people tend to look best when we have a short proportion and a long proportion, but they're both vertical rectangles. If your top is wider than it is longer, it'll make you look broader than longer. So it depends, of course, on your body shape and all those things, but if you are more HO shape, generally not the trend for you, but it is working out how you can have that similar silhouette without going to the extremes of that trend. So I hope that helps you. Of course, please do keep sending me your question, Imogen at InsideOutStyleBlog.com, and I'll chat to you again soon. Bye for now.